right.
Almost like you were waiting for me to say something.
I am not, because I don't really have a joke this week. Welcome to the Stray Pixels podcast. I'm going to start things off on kind of a somber note, because this episode is dedicated to Uncle Mike Fahey, who we just found out a couple of hours ago had passed due to medical complications after a very long fight, which left him paralyzed from the chest down a couple of years ago. He had been in and out of the hospital a couple of times, but he was one of the best in our field, and I want to do something. So this episode is dedicated to him, and I think he would have approved of our topics because he loved niche Japanese games. Oh. And we are definitely talking about those today.
Yeah. I think the best way to start this off would be a reenactment with sock puppets of the Kingdom Hearts series.
I am your host, as usual, Noisy Pixel staff writer Colin Buchanan. I am joined by my fellow staff writer Nathan Mejia and our editor-in-chief Bailey C. Mangle. How are you guys doing this week?
Pretty good. You know, same old.
Yeah. You guys can't hear it. By can't hear, I mean, I don't think I was recording when I talked about this, but no, we were. But I got my Stream Deck today.
Oh.
Well, not today, but yesterday or 2 days ago, something like that.
Yep. You tweeted it too.
I did. And I freaking reviewing PC games has never been easier for me.
Can it capture particularly okay?
It captures screenshots, not video. I could, in theory, stream my computer directly to my Steam Deck and then kind of jerry rig, like I guess a Stream Deck to do it, to hit record every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Bailey, how about you?
And I've just been playing a lot of Xenoblade 3. A lot
bad
of
game. Hashtag bad game.
Bad game.
Okay. Worse than 2.
I can't even joke about that.
So we've got, as you guys can see, we have Bailey here this week, and that is because both of our topics this week are extremely relevant to our beloved editor-in-chief. And the first of which is going to be Kingdom Hearts Dark Road exists.
Let's go.
For the longest time, we thought that it didn't. For the longest time, we were pretty sure that they were just gonna let this date pass and not say anything, but it did indeed finish.
It did, dropping more than twice the content of the first 3 chapters.
Yep. Yep. Very, very much one of those deals where they dropped the entire second half of the story at once, and it is noticeably tighter paced than the first half of the story. Because we had to cut shit for time and space and development and move it over to what's coming next.
Can't believe they spent the first 2 of the 3 chapters just in Wonderland talking about the Queen.
Yo, Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah, man.
But in any case, a brief history of the first incarnation of the Kingdom Hearts mobile game. It began as Kingdom Hearts Kai, as a browser-only game with gameplay pretty similar to what would eventually become Dark Road, but only in Japan. It did not come outside of Japan until the iOS and Android part called Kingdom Hearts Unchained Kai, which then basically made it an official part of the series as it had a global release. And then that came out in 2015. 2017, it rebrands as Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, which is the version of the game that is the most well-known. The gameplay shifts a little bit and it gets a multiplayer component to it. And then finally in June 2020, it gets renamed to Kingdom Hearts Union Cross Dark Road, when the side game to the side game was implemented, called Dark Road, and where Union Cross and Unchained are like an extreme distant prequel to the existing Kingdom Hearts story, taking place thousands of years before anything else in the franchise in what is called quote unquote the Age of Fairy Tales. Dark Road is almost exactly 65 years before the events of Birth by Sleep, when Xehanort was but a boy, and it details the story of how he went from Keyblade student to Tumblr sad boy that we all know and love.
You know, while you're saying that, and in my head, I'm totally memeing this. But I'm like, it's just like Berserk. Xehanort's is just Griffiths.
Oh, God.
I mean, he even took Kyrie.
Inspiration.
Not inspiration, direct inspiration. You can't tell me otherwise.
So Union Cross has kind of been through it, and I'm going to preface everything from here to the second half of the episode with a massive spoiler warning for the events of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, probably all of the games, and also back cover. I'm just making sure that that's a thing that we say ahead of time, because people yell at me when I spoil games that came out a decade ago.
Yeah, or they ask you like, hey, have you played more of the game than just chapter 1? You only show chapter 1. Motherfucker! Of course I didn't show you more than chapter 1. What am I going to do? Show you the big spoilers for the game?
Yes, let's get Noisy Pixel canceled again for saying that a romance visual novel has romance in it.
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen? Like
That happened. Do you not remember this?
When? When did this happen?
Was it for Variable Barricade or one of those?
Oh,
No, it was for Cupid Parasite.
Oh, Cupid Parasite.
I thought it was for like a recent thing. Okay.
Yeah. We put like a CG in.
Yes, we put one of the promotional CGs in an article and got canceled for.
Like, it was bad. They were calling Azario to delete the social media person.
Yeah, not understanding that Azario and the social media person are one and the same person.
No, it wasn't Azario. It was Dark Zario.
Dark Zario.
There were, this is a bit of a tangent, but like there were people that were genuinely affected. We reached out and apologized directly to those people. I was the one who advised that we do that. And we're all cool, but it's still a very funny thing that happened in the Noisy Pixel lore.
Yeah, it reached so widespread that even from my friends who are outside of the Otome community were texting me going like, did you see this? I'm like, yes, I see this.
So, Bailey, as the best equipped, do you want to give us your best, briefest recap of Kingdom Hearts Unchained Union Cross?
Oh God, how the hell am I gonna do this? Okay. Let's see. So what's weird about Dark Road and like all of the key shit is that technically we're getting Missing a Link sometime soon.
Mm-hmm.
God knows when. And that's between Union Cross and Dark Road.
Correct.
So we're still not entirely done with this soul crap yet. But essentially the best way I could summarize like Key and Unchained Key and Union Cross is that it eventually builds up. Well, the ending of Key is when the Keyblade like war happens, right? Yeah. And from then on, the people who survive the war, they go into a data world, and in the data world, shit goes down, and then that's when you learn about how some of the characters in the present time even got there in the first place, because there's characters who exist now like Marluxia and Larxene and Ventus, who initially came from the Key era, and through time travel shenanigans they came to this timeline, to this time period,
seemingly without their memories.
Seemingly. And then you also learn about the true antagonists, like kinda there's these like 13 darknesses who have like wills of their own.
And this is different from the 13 darknesses in Kingdom Hearts 3, because these are darknesses with a capital D. They are sentient forces of pure darkness.
Yeah.
You learn that Maleficent time traveled at after the end of Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yep. it's nuts. The story is nuts.
That's like my favorite part of this shit. But like the basic gist is that the Keyblade like war happens. Then they all go into the data world. There were these 7 old masters called the Lost Masters, and at the time they were called the Foretellers. And they all had these like animal masks. And they had their master called the Master of Masters, and he's the one who trained them. And he wrote a book called the Book of Prophecies that told the future. Stuff happens. Supposedly. Stuff happens. A page goes missing. The foretellers turn against each other. That pretty much ignites the Keyblade War to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to the data world stuff happening. And then from then on, because all the foretellers are quote unquote dead, they assign new leaders to the Keyblade wielders of that time while they're in the data world. Then those 13 darknesses end up attacking them, and then all the time travel stuff happens. One of the characters in that time period, his name is Ephemer. He's the only one there that we know of that does not time travel and remains there, and he builds the city of Scala. He's the one that found Scala at Kylum, which is.
I thought he did time travel, but not quite as far.
No. So at the end of Union Cross, a bunch of the characters time travel. So you have Ventus, you have Skuld, you have Lorium, who is Marluxia, and Elrena, who is Larxene. They all go into these life pods, and they get sent to the birth by sleep time, I think, around that time frame. But the thing with but for some reason, his pod, Ephemer's pod, doesn't work, and he's in the destroy Daybreak town, and then he eventually presumably finds the town. But there's stuff with Brain, who is one of the other leaders there. He gets body jumped by one of the old masters, Luxu. And there's a whole big mystery because there's 2 brains now, it seems like. So
sort of, and we set up in back cover that Luxu is basically the Master of Masters' direct student.
Yeah, he's
and
the direct one.
The Master of Masters, whose identity we still don't know, whose face we still haven't seen very pointedly, whose name Xehanort knows, by the way, as of the end of Dark Road, but we don't know. As basically assigns Luxu to protect a box. What's in the box? We don't know. I hate that this lazy ass storytelling trope has me so thoroughly enraptured, because it's literally a mystery box, and they've been holding this over our heads for 5 years now. But he assigns Luxu to protect the box, and Luxu basically has been body jumping ever since the Age of Fairy Tales, to his most recent body being Braig/Zigbar, who is the greater scope villain of Kingdom Hearts 3, having manipulated Xehanort into doing all the shit that he did. And that gets expanded upon pretty significantly in Dark Road, although Dark Road also has a much simpler story to summarize. And having just replayed the entire thing over the course of the last week or so, I'm gonna take that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
So Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. Dark Road was released in distinct episodes as opposed to the smaller story updates that Union Cross got, and it kind of became a running joke that Dark Road really wasn't updated as frequently as the story of Union Cross. But the first episode of Dark Road sets up a lot of really heavy shit and also foreshadows the end of Union Cross, which then foreshadows the end of Dark Road. So episode 1 of Dark Road, 65 years before Birth by Sleep, Ericus and Xehanort are both young men basically attending the school in Scala ad Kylum for Keyblade wielders. Them and a bunch of their friends find out that all of their upperclassmen have gone missing and are assigned by their teacher to go in search of them. And so they kind of go through Disney worlds as thematically appropriate and eventually discover that the upperclassmen have been traveling through the Disney worlds and taking objects that are crucial to their continued function. The biggest and most obvious examples being the magic lamp from Agrabah and the Beast's Rose from Beast's Castle. And the friends slowly start to go their separate ways and split apart as the story goes on due to ideological differences. One of them, most notably, Vor, splits off when they originally discover the upperclassmen, and she decides to go help them in their goal as opposed to staying with the rest of the original party. But we didn't for the longest time find out what the hell was going on here, because only 4 episodes were released before Dark Road was made unavailable with the finale update to Union Cross, where it was announced that
I think it was 3 episodes.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
thought it was 3.
Yeah.
So we were kind of left on a bunch of cliffhangers. The biggest one being that the first episode of Dark Road ends with a shot of Xehanort in a graveyard attending 4 graves, which are heavily implied to be those of his classmates. And that kind of sets the tone, because this story, this mobile game story has the highest body count of any single Kingdom Hearts game by a wide margin.
You could almost say it's a dark road of sorts.
It's a dark road.
Because there are 13 total students of the Keyblade School at the beginning of this story, and by the end of it, 10 of them are dead, like completely explicitly dead. One of the upperclassmen basically has his heart corrupted by a sentient darkness that is not quite the same as the sentient darknesses from Union Cross, because it is manifested from the darkness of the hearts of all of his classmates, and basically goes on a murder spree of all of his former friends, and kills all but Xehanort and Ericus by the end of it. By the time he's finally found out, although it is implied that Xehanort knew far longer than the player did, because it turns out that Xehanort is a maybe a quote unquote child of destiny, meaning he shares the same sensitivity to other people's hearts and memories that Sora does. And this is kind of where we go back to the end of Union Cross. The end of Union Cross heavily implied that Xehanort is the reincarnation of the unnamed player character from Union Cross. And it turns out he's not. The person that raised him was the reincarnation of the player character from Union Cross, and he was viewing their memories in his dreams due to this sensitivity to other people. It's convoluted, but it's honestly a lot more straightforward than Union Cross's plot, because Union Cross's plot is told out of order, and that makes it extremely confusing. One thing I learned while I was down this rabbit hole is that Union Cross has a light novelization. I literally did not know that this existed before today.
I think it might only do like the events of Key, I believe.
It might, but like that's still something, especially given that we've got a lying creator on our hands who said that the back cover movie was going to be everything you needed to know from Union Cross, and it very pointedly isn't. None of the events in back cover even happen in Union Cross. It is completely a side story that just gives additional context to what was going on in the first part of the story.
You could argue that it's Key, that if we have kind of the events of Key leading to the data world.
Kind of, but like the player's perspective of what's going on is also important, and we also don't get much of what was happening with Ephemer, who is the actual main character of the first season of Union Cross.
Like the only real like reason they made back cover, I think, was so at the end of KH3 where you see Ephemer and you see the foretellers, people are like, oh, I know who they are. Like they at least like have an idea of like who they are, you know?
So Dark Road goes on, all of the classmates die, and we get this beefy ending cutscene showing, hey, Xehanort and Sora are linked by having the same power together, and also because Xehanort was viewing the player character from Birth by Sleep's memories in his dreams. That is his motivation for actually rescuing Ventus by separating Vanitas from him when the darkness was poised to kill him. And also, Vanitas isn't literally the darkness in Ventus's heart, but in fact was his own separate being the entire time. A lot of this is shit that I'm assuming is going to get expanded upon at least a little bit in Missing Link.
They kind of imply that in 3 sometimes with Vanitas.
Right, but he doesn't really get enough screen time that you quite like. That's kind of the problem with 3, especially before Remind came out, was there's a lot of plot threads to wrap up and none of them really get enough time. Which is why you get like backfilling after the fact, like, oh, Shion didn't literally come back to life. It's a replica with her memories, even though her memories aren't supposed to exist anymore, but we're that aside.
Yeah. something nominee, which Sora's memories?
Nominee poggers.
Yes. Nominee lady not appearing in this video game because she's on the cover, but she has 2 lines in the end cutscene. So, Bailey, you reviewed Dark Road.
Yo, I did. I'm the only critic in the world who reviewed Dark Road.
Probably the only one who will ever do this. Because I think a lot of people had given up on this game ever actually coming out because it was delayed by an entire year, this final update for this story. This was supposed to come out September of last year, and it came out the very tail end of August this year. It's kind of weird.
Dark Road is, I think, the strangest thing I've seen Square do in a long ass time, because it should really not exist in 2022. I'm so shocked they managed to get approval to launch like a completely free offline mobile game. For as like super scuffed as it is, I'm like still really amazed it came out like at all.
And like, I've got kind of a unique perspective from the two of you, because Bailey, I assume that you like, did you actually play Dark Road or did you just watch it?
I played some of it, then I was like, I'll just go watch it.
And Nate, you watched it.
Yeah, I watched most of it. I'll be honest, I didn't get all the way to the end.
No, that's fine. I mean, we kind of just told you what happens, but
basically.
I played Union Cross since launch. I played through the entire story like myself. I did not watch the cutscenes. I didn't even spoil myself on the finale when it came out 2 months in Japan earlier than it came out in North America. And a lot of people at Noisy Pixel were roasting me over the fact that I was still waiting. And I was playing Dark Road. But Dark Road, especially before the offline update, was an absolute grind fest. It was awful. I had to leave my computer on with BlueStacks running and the game running in idle mode for literally days to gain enough power to continue forward in the story. And I uninstalled the game, not realizing that the data backup did not back up your data, as a matter of fact, because you cannot re-download your account should you choose to download the game again now. You have to start over. And I did start over in Dark Road, and I actually got through the entire thing in about 5 days. The free-to-play version of Dark Road is absurdly generous compared to the not free-to-play version of Dark Road, solely because of the fact that you can buy all the cards really, really easily. And I'm sitting here 5 days, like I said, after having rebooted it with a fully maxed out deck, and I think I'm like level 50. And that's just from like leaving the game running while I went to work a couple of days. So that's kind of interesting, but like we actually had originally intended to do a Noisy Pixel reacts to the end of Dark Road before we found out what a goddamn grind it was going to be to get to the end of Dark Road for those of us that still had accounts. And it did take me the whole week to replay the game, but I was stubborn about it. I was like, I played all of Union Cross. I'm not gonna skimp out on this fucking one.
Yeah. And not only that is, I don't know anybody who would want to watch 3 to 4 people watching almost 3 hours of Kingdom Hearts content.
Well, like we didn't know that it was going to be that much, because like we had no reason to expect that.
No,
and I think that, you know, especially Bailey and Ryuji have like a perspective on Kingdom Hearts. They are people that also write for a Kingdom Hearts fan news site. And obviously, like, that's why I specifically asked that Bailey be here today, was because like he is our savant when it comes to this franchise. So it's not quite what any of us expected, and we know that a lot of the content that was supposed to be part of this story was cut and moved to Missing Link, because we can't just be done with this with this prequel timeline. And of course, we also don't know what out of this is going to be relevant going forward into 4.
So
the biggest twist that is going to be relevant, although it might have already run its course, is that one of the classmates from Xehanort's class was Lushu. One of them, Bragi, who we probably all should have figured out ahead of time, because his name is literally one adjacent letter swap away from Lushu's next body jacking. Turns out to have been Lushu the whole time. He is the one classmate aside from Ericus that does not die, because obviously he can't die. He has plot armor. But it turns out that this is the beginning of him manipulating events so that Xehanort will eventually do what he does in Kingdom Hearts 3.
When Dark Road like launched, Nomura launched a Q&A, and he answered like a bunch of questions. Some of them are kind of so like a couple of them are kind of major. Probably all right, so probably the biggest one of these questions is the very last one. The person asks if Xehanort will appear in any like future titles, and Nomura says that just because
his story is over.
So he could still appear in later. So like there's a pretty likely chance he's going to appear again. And that's been causing a lot of drama.
I have a feeling it's going to be like young Xehanort mostly.
Yeah, so there's just really dumb shit going on. So he released this new illustration of young Xehanort 2. And like people in Japan, I have no idea how the hell they managed to figure this out. But apparently, based on the background of this illustration, he's apparently somewhere in Shibuya.
Yeah, some kind
or
of park.
Quadratum.
He's in a place called Miyashita. He's in a place called Miyashita Park. I can't really see it, but like people are like really hell bent. So like people are like really hell bent on this being the case.
Yeah.
So you know, it could be Quadratum. I don't fucking know.
Could be.
So,
I mean,
go ahead, Nate.
I say it could be, but all we know so far that Sora is in a different world that's based off Shibuya
With Strelitzia.
With Strelitzia.
Strelitzia being an extremely minor character initially in Union Cross, who was murdered under mysterious circumstances, and it took them 2 years of real time to actually get around to having the characters really address that.
I was gonna say like when I played the game before I quit, it was like she got murdered and then just dropped.
So she was like the most like random part of the entirety of like Union Cross.
Meta contextually, I have a suspicion that if we see Xehanort again, it's going to be young Xehanort, if only because old Xehanort is cursed because his voice actors keep dying.
Yeah.
And I think that just having young Xehanort appear would probably be best. Personally, Dark Road left me most interested in young Ericus, but we will never see young Ericus again in a voiced title.
He will just be recast, you know that.
Because a young Ericus's voice actor is canceled for being a pedophile.
They're gonna get the VA from Josh and Peck.
Yeah, no,
they're gonna get Josh Peck to do it.
Josh Peck. I would love that. Because you'll see fucking Ericus come up with it. He goes, it's spherical.
I think that Xehanort appearing as a character now, like that's something that I'm kind of interested in. I do suspect that if we see him again, it'll be the last time we see him, just because thematically, like they do eventually have to move on, and we have already seen him again since Kingdom Hearts 3 because Dream Xehanort appeared in Melody of Memory. But not being freed from the shackles of being the villain will make him a more interesting character, because he is an interesting character in Dark Road. He is like very obviously like the classmate that is the least sold on this whole light versus darkness battle thing, and they contrast him really heavily to Ericus, sort of getting the start of his I Hate Darkness t-shirt that he wears for all of Birth by Sleep, to the point where it poisons him against his students.
I forgot that one of the biggest like plot things that Dark Road teases is that now one of the big things in Kingdom Hearts now is going to be people's blood, is going to be people's like their fucking family relations now. They're fucking bloodlines.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like if Xehanort is Ephemer. So Xehanort is Ephemer's great-great-grandson. I don't need more than this, because this is how we get into the stupid parts of Star Wars.
No, so Missing Link has been confirmed to be a lot about the fucking bloodline shit.
Well, yeah, it's implied in the title.
Yeah. So like there's like two like factions of like Keyblade of the Scala Keyblade wielders. Like there's people who have like Ephemer's like bloodline and those who don't. So there's gonna be like class warfare in Missing Link.
I mean, I just want to see Master Odin's like backstory. Like they said absolutely nothing about him, but like all of the upperclassmen and their master are all named after Norse mythological figures. And
how like funny would it be if he was Yensid?
No, I reject. That's
this. What some people are saying. He's just Yensid.
Yeah.
So like, if what we're talking about, because like literally the missing link here is obviously Ephemer is Xehanort's great-great-grandfather. So there are 4 generations. Where's my math on that?
I think it's 4.
I don't remember.
4. Yeah.
4 generations of people in between Ephemer and Xehanort, which is obviously how you get from Ephemer being white to Xehanort being some flavor of brown.
Well, you could also say that he's tanned like that to reflect that he's from the Destiny Islands, which was a major plot point back.
Yeah, but none of the other Destiny Islands kids are tanned like that except for Tidus, and Tidus doesn't exist anymore, so we don't acknowledge that was
Tidus
a thing.
Was just left in Traverse Town and it disappeared.
They also kind of imply that like Brain from Union Cross, like he might be related to Ericus, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, something's got to happen with him, because he got a lot of shit at the end, and we don't actually know what became of him.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a lot left on the table here. Like there's certainly plot lines that are wrapped up. I think that anything that we see of Xehanort past this is going to be just an addendum to his story as it already exists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we're likely to see that much more of Ericus, even though a lot of people now want that. I think that his story has always been a satellite story to Xehanort's, and we saw basically everything that mattered here and in Birth by Sleep. But obviously, people want to know how Scala Ad Kylum came to be the way that it was from Daybreak Town, because they look very different, even though we could tell, when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, like, oh, that looks kind of like Daybreak Town.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know how Ephemer became such a noteworthy figure that there's literally still a statue of him in Scala Ad Kylum. And we want to know what the heck happened in all the time between Union Cross and Dark Road. And so it looks like we're going to get that in Missing Link. I'm hopeful that they have a more substantial story plan this time around, because Dark Road is definitely the story that most stinks of we were writing this as we went, especially given how much was cut and the fact that it was delayed over and over again because Nomura kept adding shit to it. But I don't know. What are you guys' final thoughts on Union Cross and Dark Road as we know them now?
How about you, Nate?
How about me, huh? I'll say this: Kingdom Heart, like Dark Road and Key and Unchained, is the most Kingdom Hearts a Kingdom Hearts story can ever get.
Correct.
To the point that out of all the compared to the entire rest of the franchise, this is more like the jokes people make about Kingdom Hearts than any other part of the franchise.
Yes.
And it is fantastic in this bizarre, batshit insane way. But at the same time, I really wish they would have tightened it up, knew where they were going with it beforehand. Otherwise, it kind of feels like, shit, give you 20 minutes more content. Go. And that was it. It was hard to keep interest in it, especially if you weren't an avid gacha game player.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that burnt out on Union Cross because it took forever for things to happen. And then in the last year and a half or so that the game was out, suddenly an entire game's worth of plot happened.
Mm-hmm.
Bailey, how about you?
I found the Dark Road plot pretty good, honestly, like by comparison. And I think that's like only because of it just being like one straight like shot with like no like filler crap in between.
Mm-hmm.
Missing Link, I have no idea what to really expect from it, like quality wise. Nomura has a lot of like he seems to have a lot of like faith in it being well because he keeps on talking about it. So like I just hope that they have a good idea of what they want to do. Because they actually hired some pretty big staff for that game. Like one of the writers is from FF like 14, I believe. They've gotten some pretty big names like for Missing Link, so I do kind of have some I do kind of have some faith in it being good. But like I hope it's like at the baseline, I like hope it's at least a fun game to play.
I hope so. I mean, First Soldier turned out better than anybody thought that it would. So like I have some faith that they know how to do this. Dark Road should have been a movie.
Yeah.
That's my take. Dark Road, I think, would have been extremely effective as an hour and a half movie. I think that it would have avoided a lot of the bad blood that came to it, because Dark Road, especially before this offline update, was a bad game. It was a game that required you to not play the game for long periods of time in between actually having content to do. It updated really infrequently. I think that Square should have just been like, you know what? Let's just make this into another movie and we'll bundle it with Kingdom Hearts 4 or something like that. But I'm happy with the story that we got. I cried. I always cry. And I cried over, a thing that we already knew, which was FMR stepping into the frame at the end, because I always cry anytime that shit gets brought up. But I'm hopeful for Missing Link based on this. But I think we all just really want to know, is Kingdom Hearts 4 coming like next year or the year after?
I expect 2024 at the earliest.
That's frustrating. That's frustrating. But anyway, that was the first half of this week's episode. In the second half, we're going to talk about the big drama of the niche video game community this week. Where NISA sent a cease and desist in regards to a game they have not publicly announced yet. Welcome back, everyone. In the first half of this week's episode, we discussed the recent Dark Road finale update for the Kingdom Hearts mobile game and what we're looking forward to in the next Kingdom Hearts mobile game. And in this half, we're going to talk some drama. And I'm going to start with our expert on the subject. Bailey, what is Zerofield?
All right, so Zerofield is a fan. Well, they're a team of Falcom fans who have done a lot of they've done a lot of fan translation work. The most recent of what they've done is creating a spreadsheet and an overlay program for that, that has that spreadsheet of Kuro no Kiseki, which is the latest like Trails game that's out in Japan.
As of
So
recording, because it
yeah,
won't be
yeah.
for much longer.
Um, the drama, I don't know if you want to say it. Um, essentially, what happened is that NIS America contacted the people behind the team, and they pretty much told them to take down all of their work, so all of the spreadsheet stuff they've like done for the franchise. And we don't really know why. It's a really bizarre problem because as of now, while we can assume that NAS America has the rights potentially, they've never outright said it. There's never been an official announcement from them that they have the rights for Kuro no Kiseki and or its
We just
sequel.
assume that it's
Yeah.
coming after Hajimari, most likely in 2024.
Yeah.
Because we have no evidence to the contrary. No one else is getting the rights to this series. So what this, obviously this is very reminiscent of a cease and desist, but no one on Zerofield, to my knowledge, has used that terminology. But obviously a cease and desist would be a legal notification by a copyright holder to someone that they view as violating that copyright, to stop, or they will be sued. This is very common when you talk about like fan games, particularly Nintendo fan games. And a lot of these people will comply immediately because a cease and desist is meant to like come before the other party needs to start lawyering up. And obviously a lot of people want to avoid that because most people don't have the financial ability to actually fight one of these copyright holders for fair use. And this is kind of an interesting subject with this property and NIS America really specifically. And to explain why, I'm going to go into some detail on a different fan translation group that appears to still be intact, whereas Zerofield appears to not be. And that is the group Geofront. Geofront have been active for the last couple of years and are still active now in some capacity, basically doing fan translations for what we thought at the time Trails games that were not coming to the West. Those would be the Crossbell games, Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure.
Yeah.
The English names for both of which were effectively coined by the Geofront. This was in a time when Cold Steel was like basically at the apex of its run and popularity, and we had no reason to think that NIS America was going to go back and relocalize or localize the two missing games in the series before proceeding forward with the much more marketable current games, those being Hajimari and at the time Kuro. And they got after many years of stop starts, they managed to complete a full fan translation or an edit of a fan translation that had originally existed for Zero that brought it basically up to the standard of the Xseed translations of the Trails in the Sky games, and added a whole bunch of features that the PC releases of Zero and Azure did not have. Most notably turbo mode, a text log, and chest messages. And about a year after that, they released one for Azure as well. And a month after the Azure patch came out, they announced immediately following an NIS, or no, it was a Falcom. It was the Falcom anniversary presentation, right? Where they announced that Zero and Azure were being officially released in English by NIS America. Geofront announced that they had partnered with NIS America to make this happen, and their translations had been officially purchased by NIS America, and as such, both the Zero and the Azure fan patches were taken down immediately. However, NIS did not stop them from finishing work on their ongoing Yeast versus Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga translation, which was finished and released, as well as another Falcom game, which I think that they finished, was Dinosaur. Did they finish Dinosaur yet? I
could check really quickly.
So this group is notably still in operation, still has a website that you can go visit, whereas the Zerofield website has been wiped. it is a coming soon WordPress template page.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think they've done Dinosaur yet.
Okay, so that's the one that they've got in the works, but they have released patches for a few smaller, more niche games. I believe that their current goal is to just bring the older Falcom library basically into English, even though they know that anything that they do after Trails to Zero, or Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, are going to be, you know, obviously much less popular than those games, because people have been waiting more than a decade for those.
Yeah.
So we've got two different fan translation companies being treated very differently.
Well, it's also very noticeable that basically noted that Geofront was working on them when the games literally had no chance, supposedly, of being Western localized, and they had been good. As far as I'm aware, Zerofield just did spreadsheets, and other people were putting them like overlaying them on top.
No, so they made the overlay program as well.
Okay, they made it as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Go ahead, Ben.
So I think part of what might have prompted this, so Kuro recently got a Steam release in I think China.
Yep.
It's China and Korea, I think.
Yeah, by Clouded Leopard Entertainment.
Yeah.
And people have been doing their own custom fan patches to put in the Zerofield translation. And I'm assuming that maybe NAS America saw that, and it kind of rang some alarm bells for them.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could possibly think of about this right now.
Well, so sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, if other people have thoughts, I always want to hear those first.
I was gonna say, well, it's also very notable here in America for copyright things is that at this point it's almost for sure NISA has the rights to Kuro. They absolutely have to have the rights by now, because here in America, if you don't protect those rights and you let something like that slide through, you can in effect lose those rights.
Yep, that is how copyrights and trademarks work.
Yeah.
I've long had a couple of fan theories regarding Geofront, and some of them kind of solidified as a result of the announcement by the Zerofield team. One of which, I am pretty sure that Geofront were the first people to know that NISA were bringing the Crossbow games over, and I think they knew way sooner than that announcement. My assumption is that the decision was revealed to them probably shortly after the fan patch for Zero was released, because there were several months where they denied entirely that they were doing Azure, and that was mostly because of the way that PC copies of Azure had to be legally obtained, because where Trails from Zero's PC version received a Japanese release, and you could easily go buy it from DL site using PayPal, I think.
Yeah.
The PC version of Azure was only ever released in China on a website that did not take Western payment. And so they basically had a liaison get in touch with this website and convince them to start taking PayPal, and that was when that is what happened.
I know they did that. That's fucking nuts.
They got Joyland to start taking PayPal. That was when they.
Okay.
I believe that the moment that was officially a done deal was when they announced the Azure patch, because before then I believe that they had already been working on it, but they weren't saying anything until they were sure that there was going to be an easy way to legally obtain the game.
Yeah.
And I feel fairly certain that part of the deal that they made with NISA shortly after the Zero patch came out, and this is all speculation, you know, if Scott or Zerker wants to come correct me, they're welcome to. But I'm pretty sure that part of the deal that they made with NIS America was that the Azure patch would be available for a specific amount of time before the announcement was made, and that is also why the Azure patch took a much shorter amount of time to do than the Zero patch, despite having much more text than Zero does, is because they had an actual deadline to work off of. They knew when this announcement was going to be made, and they wanted their patch to be available for a certain amount of time before that, so that they had something to show for all their hard work on it. Especially given that while we can probably guess that a significant portion of their translation is going to be baked into the official releases of Zero and Azure, a lot of their programming will not be, because the versions of Zero and Azure that we are getting are based on updated re-releases of those games. And that's kind of part of the other piece of the puzzle, is that those updated re-releases, as well as the Steam versions of Zero and Azure, were announced well after GeoFront had already made all of their plans, and they made it very clear that their patches will not be compatible with the Clouded Leopard Entertainment released Steam versions of the games, which obviously are much easier to obtain than the PC ports that they were working off of. So I kind of feel like that's part of the other piece of this puzzle, is NISA feels much more directly threatened by a patch that can be applied to a version of the game you buy on Steam like you would any other game, than they do a patch applied to a version of the game that you get on a market that they do not participate in.
And the main difference there is, of course, any Joe Schmo can download Steam. Only a dedicated fan who's going to double dip for an official Western release anyways would get the
precisely. I know many people that very insistently informed me that they were not going to be playing the GeoFront patches just because of the extra steps involved in procuring legal copies of these games. And from my point of view, I bought both of those PC versions legally, the one on DL Site and the one on Joyoland, mostly because they were dirt cheap. I think I got Zero for $22 US, and I think I got Azure for like $7.50. But I also have pre-ordered the limited editions of both of the PS4 versions released by NIS America, one of which is obviously coming later this month. I just got the notification that it had shipped.
I missed Zeros, unfortunately. I got the deluxe version, but that's it.
This is actually the first time I've ever bought a deluxe edition at launch. I have a couple of them that were bought like at clearance prices later after the fact, mostly Kingdom Hearts 3 and Ni no Kuni 2, but I've never bought one at launch, so I'm excited for that. But obviously the Zerofield translation was primarily being applied to the Steam versions of Hajimari and Kuro, and we know that they were going to start work on Kuro 2 when that came out. So I think that was why this message from NISA came when it did. But this is kind of a firebomb situation, and I understand where both sides are coming from. This fandom is very put upon, as Bailey will attest.
The timing of this is like really bad too, because NES America is having a showcase stream next week, and I don't know what's gonna happen during that stream. It's gonna be bad. And like it's going to only be exacerbated by the fact that like I sincerely doubt they're gonna have like any like major trails like stuff there. Like at most it's gonna be like Zero, like maybe a Trails to Azure thing, I don't know. But people are gonna be like even more put off by, like, we're assuming that they're not gonna show like Kuro there, obviously. People are gonna be more put off by the fact that it's not there and they just did what they did, you know? So it's gonna cause a whole other wave.
And like here's the thing, like, as we have previously stated, so we already have the roadmap for the next several games that are coming from NISA in this franchise. We are getting Zero this month, we are getting Azure early next year, we are getting Nayuta in the middle of next year, and we're getting Hajimari in fall. That is almost certainly what's going to happen. And then Kuro is probably not coming until 2024. And the unfortunate part of that is that we are still in a state of these games are coming out really far after the Japanese versions, and fans are getting impatient, especially the people that are really pissed that NIS America effectively took an entire year to localize the Crossbell games and Nayuta. A lot of there are people out there that are vehemently against these releases because they believe it is a complete waste of time compared to just getting the fuck to Hajimari and Kuro, and they will not be dissuaded from that notion.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
That's such a weird thing because the reason why I thought we were getting these was because it was much easier for the translation because it was already 90% done. They're doing the last 10% now.
The people who are upset about that, like the people who don't really want these games to be localized anymore, are those who already have access to the fan translations back from Geofront. So like they don't care about like any official localizations, right?
Okay. And to be clear, Geofront's statement is and has always been support the official releases if and when they happen. And obviously they have since moved on to games that will 1000% never get official releases. Starting with a niche spin-off of a niche RPG series, because they started with Alternative Saga, which has never been ported off of the PSP. So they've moved on to things that they're less likely to be C&D'd for, as opposed to Zerofield, who are almost comically in NIS America's way. And we're almost certainly this was going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah,
it's really unfortunate that it did happen because it's not directly their fault. It wasn't like they were maliciously doing this. This sounds like they were providing translations that other people were using, and this release just kind of put them in the crosshairs.
Correct, but I also feel like they probably knew that eventually this was going to happen. Like they were working on games that were eventually going to be released officially. And I'm sure that they would have been pressured at the very least to take them down once Kuro was finally announced. NISA is just waiting to announce Kuro officially because they already announced 4 Trails games. At the end of last year.
We got 5 games coming, right? We got Zero, Azure, Hajimari,
Nayuta.
Yeah, we got 4 games coming.
So continuing to add stuff onto the end of that now is kind of silly. The fandom knows it's coming. The fandom has a pretty solid idea that it's probably coming in 2024, and then hopefully we get Kuro 2 in 2025, and we will be significantly closer to being caught up.
On the bright side, and this is just an assumption on my part, we're gonna probably get Ys 10 next year in Japan. I would think so. And that year gap of no Trails is going to be pretty significant for us, and
because it's a whole year that they have to catch up to the release timeline,
and we're fully caught up on Ys, so it's gonna essentially just be like we're going to be just only 2 games behind Trails now, which is a lot better than it used to be.
And we get Ys quickly because the average Ys game has about 15% as much dialogue as the average Trails game.
There's like that the main character doesn't talk once.
But in any case, obviously there's people that are upset for other reasons that the Geofront translation is being used as a base as a base for the official releases, and obviously the Zerofield translation is not getting that treatment so far as we know. I feel like this wouldn't have been if they were approaching Zerofield, which by the way Zerofield has explicitly stated that they were not approached for permission to use their translation. If they actually had been, they would be under a gag order for this. They would have just pulled it and said, we're sorry, or something like that. We're sorry, we're not allowed to say anything because this game has not actually been formally announced yet. Whereas Geofront, when those got pulled, that was when we got the announcements that not only were the official releases coming, but they were going to be involved in the official release. There's people that are not happy with the way that Geofront translated the games because they don't know how to have fun, and they don't want Randy to say bruh. And I will be immensely disappointed if at least one bruh does not make it into the final product, just to spite those bastards, because again, they don't know how to have fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Bailey has you have your own feelings on
Yeah.
on Geofront, some of which are mean spirited and we're not going to quite go into here. But what was you're the only one of us that's actually played a Zerofield translation. So what was your
Oh yeah, I played through Kuro with the Zerofield translation.
Yeah. How was that?
what was your how would you compare their work to Geofront's in terms of
It's definitely not as like well like so like it's not as well like edited as a Geofront is. Like it was still pretty damn good, but the way they handled it was they divided the work across like a whole like group of people, and you could clearly tell when some parts were written or like translated by somebody else. So it was a bit there were some times where like it was kind of inconsistent, but like for the most part it was like pretty good.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, that's good to hear. It's too bad their translations are new. Well, the official way to get them is nuked, of course. If you search around, nothing's ever truly deleted from the
nothing
internet.
dies on the internet. All of this is still in places. You just got to go looking for it.
Yeah.
And then so the overlay program, this is basically just to outline this for people that might not understand. So this is a way of basically playing the game with English text without having to inject the actual English text in where the Japanese text goes, which takes a long ass time to do.
It was pretty wild. So like the way that a lot of people did it back when it first like came out was you would use the PS4 or PS5 remote play, and you would play it on like your computer. And this is how I did it too. So you would like launch the overlay program, then launch remote play on your PC while the game was running, and then you would attach it, and then it would be able. So like you would have to like manually advance it, because the overlay program and the game have like two separate like button prompts.
Yeah.
But you could like try to like tie them together, and like for the most part it it worked pretty like well. It was pretty impressive, honestly, for how quickly it came out after Kuro did.
Yeah. Well, essentially, it's easy. I want to like bog us down in programmer speak.
Yeah,
go for it. You're the one of us with that perspective.
So essentially, all the program is doing is because it's literally spreadsheets. It's I don't know if they used Excel or some other thing, but it's literally just spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And the program is just looking at the part of the game, looking at what row, what column, pulling from it, and that's easy to read and do. The hardest part is loading in at the beginning, but if you front load all that shit,
I guess like
easy.
What I should say is the most so like I guess what the most impressive thing would be was how quickly they got the translation out. Because if I recall, I think it was only like 2 or like 3 months after the game came out. I think, which is like absurdly fast.
Yeah.
Did it? I mean, so Kuro is it similar in length to Hajimari, or is it longer?
No, it's a pretty long game. It's it's I think like 80-ish hours or like 90, I think.
I don't think they're ever gonna go as long as Cold Steel 4 again, but with the exception of whatever the end of this series is, which apparently as of Kuro 1 we're about 60% of the way through. According to Falcom. God knows what the hell that means.
You kind of wait until they make Naruto canon. It's gonna be crazy.
Bro, I just can't wait until there's like every country is fighting each other and Cassius is in the middle of it all.
They're gonna make they're gonna make the last game a fucking Dynasty Warriors game, and you're gonna be able to.
It's just gonna be Cassius.
You know what? I would play the fuck out of Kiseki Warriors. And don't you dare say that you wouldn't, because I know you would.
No, that would actually be pretty cool.
This series is ripe for it.
It'll be really good, actually.
Yeah.
Warriors game.
Fucking do fucking Estelle's spinning attack. It's
and
a bunch of fucking people.
I will tell you what. it would be a hell of a lot less niche than Token Ranbu Wars.
Talking around the Warriors.
A game I cannot believe got an English release.
You got a physical, right? No?
No, I don't think it
No,
did.
no.
I never saw a physical.
I think it was digital only, but still, that I got a release here at all is
Yeah, that's
amazing.
pretty wild.
So, I've played up through Cold Steel 2. Bailey has played everything. Nate, are you still excited for Zero after all this?
I'm so excited for Zero. I'm like more than halfway through Cold Steel 1 now. I'm gonna beat Cold Steel 1, and then whenever I get my hands on Zero is whenever I get my hands on Zero.
Mm-hmm. Based on my own experience, because I was playing the games while all this weird nonsense was happening. I do recommend, like, my recommended play order is Cold Steel 1, Zero, Azure, Cold Steel 2. Because yes, Azure does spoil Cold Steel 2, but it's not really a spoiler. It's a thing that you knew was going to happen if you already played Cold Steel 1.
I'm gonna see how I feel at the end of Cold Steel 1 because I've been hearing a bunch of different takes is play Zero after Cold Steel 1, play Zero before the Cold Steel, because of course, or do what you said, CS1 Zero or CS2 or CS1 CS2.
We do have a beginner's guide on our site.
We do.
We
would also have an April Fool's beginner's guide, but someone here was a coward.
I don't have the balls for that, Colin.
Yeah.
And it also helps because you get to play Azure, one of the best games in the series, before Cold Steel 2, the worst game in the whole series.
What are you talking about? Trails starts at Cold Steel 2.
Oh, boy. My favorite Trails game is the Boundless Trails of Nayuta.
Bro, when Machias and Reen are in the bed together.
Both of the Bailey, both you and I have Trails hot takes, because a lot of people really hate Cold Steel 4. A lot of people just think it's like absolute garbage and it's way too long and it doesn't justify it, and it's your favorite one in the
whole my favorite game, baby.
And I absolutely despised Cold Steel 2. I thought it was much longer than it needed to be, and I thought that the war didn't feel real, and it just felt like a bunch of teenagers pretending that there was a war.
I mean,
until like 2/3 of the way into the game.
It's like real life there, though, Colin. Is there really a war?
And it's really toothless, but
considering
and not the fun toothless that's a dragon.
I mean, considering that Cold Steel 1 is all about like the Class 7 exploring the world outside of their own little preconceived notions, I would kind of expect the war into 2 wouldn't feel as real.
I mean, I love Cold Steel 1. Cold Steel 1 had its hooks, like, and this is honestly its own hot take now, because Cold Steel 1 was the game that broke the series out in the West for a lot of people, and was the first one that really got like a lot of major press coverage beyond just it being a curiosity. But in hindsight, a lot of people really don't like it compared to the rest of the games in the series. I really like Cold Steel 1. I really loved the world tour that it took me on, because the locations that you go to are much more varied than anywhere that you go in Liberal or Crossbell.
Yeah, considering that Crossbell literally is just a city and Liberal is like not even half the size of Erebonia.
Not even a fifth of the size of Erebonia.
Like, you do a whole lap around the entire country of Liberal in a single game.
You called it liberal, and it made me want to do a Ben Shapiro impression.
I have seen some like people upset about the fact that the Crossbell localizations that they won't have an English dub.
Oh yeah.
It's understandable. I'm not thrilled about it either. These are very wordy games that really need dubs, but also being really wordy games, Azure especially, would cost a lot of money to dub.
I can't imagine them fucking getting Robbie Damon for Lloyd for fucking Zero in Azure.
Brother.
That'd be fucking insane.
Honestly, I don't. It's gonna be weird when I finally get to hear Estelle without her Japanese voice actress. It's gonna be so fucking weird for me.
Yo,
I mean, playing Zero in Azure and then playing Cold Steel 2 and hearing Lloyd for the first time in English is really fucking jarring.
Yo.
It does not sound like he did in my
Yo,
head. And I like Robbie Damon.
He's so good as him though. When he does his fucking S-craft, it's so good.
I'm gonna finish Cold Steel 3 eventually. I'm at a point where I'm just like, I know I have some time to finish Cold Steel 3 and 4. Because I effectively have a whole year. I'm probably gonna play Nayuta in like a week. Because it's short as hell.
So for some reason, and like nobody here knows why, NAS America gave us a code for the Japanese PC version of not
Nayuta.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've been playing
Is this something we're allowed to share?
Yeah, because the game's out. Like the game's been out in Japan. Like,
okay, I mean that's
the...
fair. This is just really weird.
Yeah, so it's the Japanese PC version on Steam.
Published by Clouded Leopard or published by someone else?
It's published by NAS America.
What?
Oh, well, you know what? That makes sense because they're probably just gonna patch in the languages later when official release.
So what's happening here? So like me and Azaria were like super
understandably.
Because, yeah. So like if you check the store page for not like Utah, right? So like it says it's by NAS America. So I guess they have the rights to the Japanese version somehow. And the developer here is the team that Durante runs.
Yes.
So what I think happened here is that because I think Durante worked on the Japanese PC version, and because of some because of like some work that they've done with NAS America, maybe they own it, like and like that may be why they own this version by extension. But it's like really bizarre. It makes no sense.
Every time I see this game, I think that it looks like the DS Tales games.
Yeah,
it kind of is. So like if you've played like any of those Y games, it's essentially like a successor to that kind of.
Yeah. So no, you're like Bailey's right because there's two versions of Nayuta on. One is the Clouded Leopard version, and then one is completely in English, Legend of Nayuta: Boundless Trails.
Is our version going to be based on the Kai version? I assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be based on that version,
but it's going to be $5 more.
Yeah. I mean, game looks good.
It's pretty fun.
It looks neat.
Yeah,
I think that's what a lot of people are going to say. It looks neat.
I have like no idea how they're gonna sell this, but
this is going to like the entire like cross-spell duology plus Nayuta is going to be a weird sell because it also is a direct contradiction of NISA's own language regarding this series, that being that Trails of Cold Steel 3 is the best place to start and you don't have to have played anything before that. Obviously this goes against that.
Yeah.
But I think that also a lot of people identified that statement as bullshit. Mostly the one thing, so I guess there's two things that we really need to have for this series in the West, and that's number one, Xseed needs to put out the Cold Steel 1 and 2 ports, or they need to just sell the entire back catalog to NIS America so that NIS America just has it and we can be done with
I think at this point it'd be ideal if they were to just like sell all of Sky and Cold Steel like 1 and 2, because like having this like interconnected franchise like divided by like two
who owns which games,
it's a really big mess.
It is, and it would finally maybe bring Sky and Cold Steel 1 and 2 to Switch,
because that's the other missing piece, is that to this date Sky is still only available on PC and PSP, and it really badly needs a current console generation version, and that was teased even when the Kai versions of Zero and Azure were announced and released for PS4. They were like, hey, we can try bringing Sky to modern platforms now. It needs to happen, and I think for that, I think Xseed is probably going to need to let go of
Japan has the whole dream right now. So like if you have PlayStation Plus in Japan, you can get the entire series except for Kuro.
as Ryuji has mentioned every single time he's on this podcast.
I'm debating about going for it because I want to see how different the Kai versions of Sky is from the Evolution versions.
One caveat is that those Sky versions they have, they're the PS3 versions, so they're cloud. But aside from that, like they're all like the native version. So like they have they have the Crossbell Kai games, they have CS1, 2, like they have those Kai games, they have 3, 4, they have Hajimari. And they have the entire like lineup of the modern like ease games too. Like Japan's got the whole fucking thing there.
They've got the dream.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any quick final thoughts on Zerofield?
I said it before earlier, but I'll just kind of reiterate it. You're right. They probably were expecting this. I don't think they're expecting this until the official announcement. So it sucks that Clouded Leopard, sold their version on Steam that they have the rights to do, and fans kind of mess it up for them.
Bailey?
I'm just kind of like concerned about what's going to happen with like the fan base and how they treat NISA from now on.
Yeah.
Especially with like this whole like stream they're having next week and like the aftermath and what's gonna happen. I just hope like nothing that bad happens,
It's frustrating because like this is something that's completely understandable for NISA to do. Every sale of the Clouded Leopard version of the game that got patched with this translation is more than likely a sale that they don't get once they release their version of the game. And it's kind of different from the issue of like piracy, because these are people that clearly are willing to pay for the game, but they're not paying the people that are actually bringing it to them in English.
It's like it's a whole problem where like you can't really blame either side too much, because with the fans, like
we could all want the game sooner, but the
like
company needs to protect its investment.
I mean, I still just think they should have released Zero and Azure as a dual pack.
That too. I agree with that. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We post every Tuesday, ideally on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What do you guys think of the Zerofield situation? Are you hashtag Team NISA or hashtag Team FanPix?
I think you like this, Colin. I saw some tweets of like people with like the whole C thing from Cold Steel 1 saying it's time for the liberation. It got me so good.
What did you guys think of the Dark Road finale? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future episode, you can also leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger. You can find Bailey at Orpheus Joshua, and you can find Nate at Less Than Nate. You can also find the site itself at Noisy Pixel News. Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please join our community Discord server to come talk nerdy with us, and like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our future content. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.